Story outline: The portrait in the attic. Main characters: Marcus Whitmore, reclusive billionaire art collector Elena Rossetti, new estate curator with a hidden past Sophia Rossetti, Elena's deceased sister, Marcus's lost love, James Harrington, Marcus's loyal estate manager, Dr. Victoria Chen, Marcus's therapist and old friend. Part outlines. Part 1. The Arrival. Marcus Whitmore interviews Elena Rossetti for the curator position at his remote estate. Despite her impressive credentials, something about her unsettles him. A familiar gesture, a turn of phrase that awakens memories he's tried to bury. Part 2. Echoes of the Past. As Elena settles into her role, Marcus notices disturbing similarities. To Sophia, his fiancée who died in a boat accident 7 years ago. Her knowledge of obscure artists they once discussed, the way she arranges flowers, each detail deepens his unease. Part 3. The Discovery. While cataloging paintings in the attic, Elena finds a hidden portrait of Sophia. Marcus catches her crying. Before it, and in a moment of raw emotion, she reveals she is Sophia's younger sister who changed her identity to escape their family's criminal connections. Part 4. Unraveling Truth. Elena explains how Sophia died protecting her from their father's dangerous associates. She took this job to understand the man her sister loved, never expecting to develop feelings of her own. Marcus struggles between grief, anger, and unexpected hope. Part 5. New Canvas. After weeks of careful distance, Marcus and Elena begin to forge their own connection. Not as shadows of the past, but as two people who understand loss and choose to paint a new future together, honoring Sophia's memory while creating something uniquely theirs. Part 1. The Arrival. The November rain drummed against the windows of Whitmore Estate as Marcus studied the resume before him. Elena Rossetti came highly recommended, degrees from Florence and Oxford, experience at the Uffizi Gallery, published papers on Renaissance restoration techniques. On paper, she was perfect, for cataloging his extensive private collection. In person, she was unsettling. "Tell me about your experience with Venetian masters," Marcus said, watching her shift in the leather chair across from his desk. Something about the way she tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear made his chest tighten. "I spent 3 years studying under Professor Marcello at the Academy," Elena replied, her voice carrying a subtle accent he couldn't quite place. "My dissertation focused on the use of light in Titian's later works." Marcus's pen stilled. Sophia had written her thesis on the same topic. "Interesting choice," he managed, forcing his attention back to her credentials. "Why leave such a prestigious position in Florence?" Elena's fingers traced the edge of her portfolio, a nervous gesture that sent another jolt through him. "Sometimes we need distance from our past to appreciate our future," she said quietly. "Your collection, Mr. Whitmore, represents a chance to work with pieces rarely seen by scholars. That opportunity outweighs any geographical preference." He nodded, though her words echoed something Sophia once said about leaving Italy. Marcus pushed the thought away. 7 years of seeing her ghost in strangers' faces had taught him the danger of such comparisons. "The position requires living on the estate," he said. "The West Wing has been prepared for staff quarters. You'll have full access to the collection, though some areas remain private." "Of course." Elena straightened, professional composure returning. "When would you need me to start?" "Monday, if possible. James, my estate manager, will handle the practical arrangements." Marcus stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to Whitmore Estate, Ms. Rossetti." Her handshake was firm, but he noticed the thin scar across her palm, another detail that shouldn't matter but somehow did. As James escorted her out, Marcus moved to the window, watching her umbrella disappear into the rain. He'd hired her for her expertise, nothing more. The similarities were coincidence, projection of a grief that had never quite healed. Elena Rossetti was a curator, not a ghost. But that night, Marcus found himself in his study, staring at a photograph he hadn't looked at in months. Sophia smiled back at him from their trip to Venice, her hand shading her eyes from the sun. The gesture was identical to one Elena had made during the interview when discussing light in paintings. He locked the photo away and poured himself a scotch. The mind played tricks, especially on those who lived too much in the past. Elena Rossetti would catalog his collection, nothing more. Yet as November rain turned to sleet against the windows, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that hiring her had set something inevitable in motion. Echoes of the past. The morning Elena began her work, Marcus told himself he would maintain distance. Professional boundaries were essential. He'd learned that lesson painfully over the years. Yet by her third day, he found himself drawn to the restoration room where she worked. "Mr. Whitmore," Elena said without looking up from the Caravaggio she was examining. "Did you know this painting has been incorrectly attributed? The brushwork suggests it's from his workshop, not the master himself." Marcus stepped closer, careful to maintain space between them. "My acquisition team assured me of its authenticity." "Oh, it's authentic to the period." She adjusted her magnifying lens, and he caught her humming softly, a melody that made his blood run cold. It was Sophia's favorite Puccini aria, the one she'd hum while cooking Sunday dinners. "Where did you learn that tune?" The question escaped. Before he could stop it, Elena's hand stilled. "I'm sorry. Was I humming? Bad habit when I concentrate. My sister used to say—" She cut herself off, returning focus to the painting. "The varnish here shows signs of 18th century restoration." Fascinating. But Marcus barely heard her technical explanation. The way she'd mentioned her sister, the catch in her voice, the abrupt silence, mirrored exactly how Sophia used to speak of family she'd left behind in Italy. Over the following weeks, the similarities multiplied like cracks in glass. Elena arranged the fresh flowers in the entrance hall the same way Sophia had, always white roses with eucalyptus, turned slightly toward the morning light. She took her coffee with a specific amount of cream that she measured by sight, just as Sophia had. Most unnervingly, she seemed to know which paintings held special meaning before he mentioned them. "The Botticelli in the blue room," she said one afternoon, not knowing Marcus stood in the doorway. "There's such sadness in the angel's eyes, as if the artist knew about loss." Marcus gripped the doorframe. He'd bought that painting for Sophia, who'd said those exact words when they'd seen it at auction. James noticed his distraction. "Sir, if the new curator is unsatisfactory—" "She's perfectly satisfactory," Marcus said too quickly. "Her work is exemplary." "Of course, sir. Though perhaps you might benefit from your upcoming trip to London. Some distance." But Marcus canceled the trip. He told himself it was to oversee the collection inventory, though he knew the truth was more complex. He was becoming obsessed with solving the mystery of Elena Rossetti. Late one evening, he found her in the library, reading by firelight. The scene was so achingly familiar, Sophia in that same chair, absorbed in art history texts, that he nearly turned away. But Elena looked up, and in the flickering light, her expression held such profound sadness that he stepped forward instead. "You work too late," he said softly. "So do you." She closed the book, a volume on Venetian painters he recognized from his personal collection. "This library is remarkable. Your taste in art books is exactly what I would choose." "And what? Would you know of my taste?" The question came out sharper than intended. Elena stood, clutching the book to her chest. "I apologize. I didn't mean to presume. It's just that your collection, it speaks of someone who sees beyond the surface, someone who understands that beauty and pain often share the same canvas." Her words hung between them, too intimate for employer and employee. Marcus watched her leave, the book still pressed against her heart like armor. That night, he pulled out Sophia's journals, the ones he'd saved from her apartment after the accident. Her handwriting blurred through his exhaustion, but one entry stopped him cold. My little sister Elena has my hands, my voice, but thank God not my burdens. I pray she finds her own path, free from the shadows that follow our family. The journal slipped from his fingers. It wasn't possible. Sophia had mentioned a sister only once, saying she died in childhood. But what if... Marcus moved to his computer, searching international databases with skills acquired through years of art authentication. Elena Rossetti existed in official records only from 7 years ago, exactly when Sophia died. Before that, nothing. As if she'd materialized from grief itself. He should confront her, demand answers. Any reasonable man would. But Marcus found himself afraid of what truths might shatter the fragile hope building in his chest. Because despite every rational argument, despite the impossibility and improbability, he was beginning to feel something he'd thought died with Sophia in those cold Mediterranean waters. Not love, not yet. But the possibility of it, tender and terrifying as the first green shoot through winter snow. The discovery. The attic had been off limits to staff for 7 years, but the insurance assessor insisted on documenting every piece in the collection. Marcus assigned Elena the task, believing the dusty canvases held no emotional landmines, mostly inferior works bought in bulk at estate sales, stored and forgotten. He was catastrophically wrong. 3 days into the inventory, Elena hadn't appeared for their morning briefing. James reported she'd entered the attic at dawn. By noon, Marcus's unease drove him up the narrow stairs he'd avoided since Sophia's death. He found Elena on her knees before an easel in the corner, sobbing with an abandon that suggested she believed herself alone. The portrait on the easel made Marcus's heart stop. Sophia gazed out from the canvas, captured in oils with a tenderness that revealed the artist's love. Marcus had painted it during their last summer together, when she'd posed in the garden wearing the white sundress she favored. He'd hidden it here the day after her funeral, unable to bear its presence, yet incapable of destroying it. Elena. His voice came out strangled. She spun around, face streaked with tears, and in that moment, the carefully maintained walls between them crumbled. Her expression held recognition, grief, and a secret too heavy to bear. "You painted this," she whispered. It wasn't a question. How could you possibly know that? Elena rose unsteadily, her hand reaching toward the portrait before falling to her side. "Because I know those brush strokes. The way you layer light. She told me once that watching you paint was like watching someone write love letters in color. The air in the attic became suffocating." "Who told you?" "Sophia." The name emerged broken, reverent. "My sister." Marcus felt the world tilt. "Sophia's sister died when she was 12. I know." Elena laughed bitterly, wiping her eyes. "That's what she told everyone. It was easier than explaining the truth, that our father was connected to the Calabrian crime families, that she got out but I was trapped. She protected me by erasing me." "You're lying." But even as he said it, Marcus saw the truth written, in her features, the same delicate bone structure, the familiar gesture as she pushed hair from her face. "I wish I were." Elena sank onto a dusty trunk. "My name was Francesca then. After Sophia died, after what happened, I had to disappear completely. New name, new life, years of looking over my shoulder. I became Elena Rossetti, art historian. Nobody's sister. Nobody's past catching up. Then why come here?" Rage and grief battled in his chest. "Why take this job? To torture me? I didn't know. The words exploded from her. I knew Sophia had loved someone named Marcus, someone she'd left to protect. But Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire who collected art? I never connected. Not until I was already here, seeing her influence everywhere. Her favorite flowers, the books she recommended to you, the way you'd arrange the morning room exactly, as she'd described her dream home. Elena stood, facing him with desperate courage. I took this job because I'd spent 7 years running from who I was. Art was the only thing that still connected me to her, to the life before everything went wrong. When I saw your collection advertised, it felt like fate. I never imagined... Never imagined what? Marcus's voice was dangerous. That I'd walk into this house and find my sister's ghost in every corner. That I'd meet the man she'd loved and understand why she'd spoken of you like a prayer. That I'd start to... She stopped abruptly, horror crossing her face. Start to what? He moved closer, anger giving way to something more complex. Feel things I have no right to feel. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. You loved my sister. I'm here under false pretenses, even if unintentional. Every moment I stay is a betrayal of her memory, but I can't seem to leave. Marcus studied her face, seeing Sophia's features transformed by different experiences, different sorrows. The scar on your palm? Elena's hand closed reflexively. From the night she died. I tried to pull her back into the boat, but the storm... Her voice broke entirely. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't a ghost or an imposter, but a woman carrying her own grief, her own guilt. Someone who'd lost Sophia, too, who understood the weight of that absence. Show me, he said roughly. Show me something only her sister would know. Elena moved to the portrait, her fingers hovering over the painted garden. She was wearing the locket you gave her, the one with the Botticelli angel, but she'd added something you never knew about. Her voice grew soft with memory. Inside, behind your photo, she kept a picture of me. Said that way her two loves were always close to her heart. Marcus's composure finally shattered. He'd found the locket with Sophia's body, had worn it himself until the weight became unbearable. It now lay in his bedroom safe, unopened for years. I'll resign immediately, Elena said, misreading his silence. I'll leave tonight. I'm so sorry. Marcus! I never meant... Don't! The word came out harsh, desperate. Don't leave, not yet. I need to understand. Everything. Why she left. What happened. Who you really are beneath the name changes and false papers. Elena searched his face, finding something there that made her shoulders drop. It's a long story. An ugly one. Are you sure you want to know? It might change how you remember her. Marcus looked at the portrait. Sophia frozen in a moment of perfect happiness, unaware of the tragedy approaching. Then he looked at Elena, alive and complicated and carrying secrets that might finally explain why the woman he'd planned to marry had vanished without explanation. Tell me everything, he said. I've lived with questions for 7 years. I'd rather have painful answers than beautiful mysteries. They left the attic together, the portrait remaining behind like a benediction or a curse. As they descended the stairs, Marcus noticed Elena's hand trembling on the banister and without thinking covered it with his own. She didn't pull away. Unraveling truth. They sat in Marcus's study as November wind rattled the windows, a bottle of wine between them growing warm and untouched. Elena spoke for hours, unraveling a story that transformed everything Marcus thought he knew about Sophia's death. Our father was Francesco Benedetti, not Rossetti. That was our mother's name. He ran legitimate businesses as cover for the 'Ndrangheta operations. Sophia escaped to America for college, cut all ties. She thought she was free. But she wasn't, Marcus said, beginning to understand. Nobody leaves that life cleanly. When Papa discovered she was planning to marry you, a prominent American with connections he could exploit, he saw opportunity. He sent men to bring her back to Italy to force her cooperation. Elena's voice remained steady, but her hands shook. She refused, said she'd die before dragging you into that world. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. The family emergency, she mentioned, was me. They took me as leverage. 14 years old, terrified, held in a warehouse in Calabria. Elena's fingers traced the stem of her untouched wine glass. Sophia came back, not to submit, but to get me out. She'd made a deal with the authorities. Testimony in exchange for protection. But Papa found out. The boating accident, Marcus said hollowly, wasn't an accident. The storm was real, but the boat had been sabotaged. Sophia knew. She made me wear the life jacket, held me above water when the engine exploded. Her last words were about you. She said, "Tell Marcus I kept my promise. I kept him safe." Silence stretched between them, heavy with revelation. Marcus rose abruptly, moving to the window. 7 years of anger at being abandoned, of wondering why she'd left without explanation, crumbled into dust. "You were 14, he said finally. "Where did you go?" "Witness protection, initially. New name, new country. But I couldn't testify. Too traumatized, too young. The case fell apart. Papa's men kept searching, so I kept running. Art school in Prague under false papers, then restoration work, always moving." She paused. "I became very good at being nobody." Marcus turned to face her. "Why risk coming here? If they're still looking?" "Papa died 2 years ago, heart attack in prison. They'd finally caught him on tax charges, like Capone." Elena's smile held no humor. "His organization fractured, the vendetta died with him. For the first time since I was 14, I could stop running. But I'd been Elena Rossetti so long, I didn't know how to be anyone else." "So you came here?" "Not intentionally. I told you the truth about that. But once I realized who you were, She stood, pacing to the bookshelf. "I wanted to understand the life Sophia almost had, the man she'd loved enough to die protecting. I told myself I'd catalog your collection and leave. But then, Elena turned, meeting his gaze with devastating honesty. "Then I got to know you. Not the idea of you from Sophia's letters, but you, brilliant, wounded, kind beneath the walls you've built. I watched you handle your staff with quiet consideration, saw your passion when discussing art, noticed how you still set 2 cups for morning coffee before remembering you're alone. Elena, I know it's wrong. I know she was your everything. But I can't help what I feel, and I won't dishonor either of you by pretending otherwise." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The cruel irony is that I think Sophia would understand. She always said I'd know real love by how much it terrified me." Marcus crossed the room without conscious decision, stopping just out of reach. This close, he could see the differences. Elena's eyes were amber, where Sophia's had been dark brown, her face marked by sorrows Sophia had been spared. "You're not her," he said quietly. "No," Elena agreed. "I'm not. I'm the sister who survived, who carries guilt like a second skeleton, who's been 3 different people in 7 years. I'm complicated and damaged, and I have no right to stand in your wife's house feeling what I feel. She wasn't my wife. We never got the chance." The words tasted bitter. "And this isn't her house. She never lived here. I bought it after, when every corner of my old life reminded me of her absence. Marcus, I need time," he said abruptly, "to process this, to figure out what's real and what's just proximity to memory." Elena nodded, moving toward the door. "I'll pack tonight. James can forward—" "No." The word emerged forcefully. Stay. Finish the cataloging. Give me time to think without running away. You've both done enough running for multiple lifetimes. She paused at the threshold. What if time doesn't change anything? What if you decide I'm too painful a reminder? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Then we'll face that honestly. But I won't make decisions based on fear anymore. Sophia died to prevent that. The least I can do is honor her sacrifice. Elena left without another word, but her presence lingered in the study. Marcus poured himself the wine they'd abandoned, staring at the space where she'd stood. For 7 years, he'd lived in a mausoleum of memory. Now, truth had cracked the walls, letting in light that both hurt and healed. He didn't know what came next, forgiveness, possibility, or simply closure. But for the first time since losing Sophia, Marcus felt the stirring of something beyond. Grief. The terrifying, tentative hope that love might not be a finite resource, that hearts broken by loss might still have room for unexpected grace. New canvas. Winter arrived early that year, blanketing the Whitmore estate in pristine snow. For 2 weeks after Elena's revelation, they maintained careful distance. Professional interactions over breakfast, brief consultations about the collection, nothing more. But awareness hummed between them like a live wire, charged with possibility and restraint. Marcus found himself watching her when she worked, noting the differences he'd been blind to before. Where Sophia had been impulsive and effervescent, Elena possessed a quiet steadiness born from survival. She moved through the world carefully, as if still expecting to flee at any moment. The shift began with small gestures. Marcus started leaving art history books on her desk, not assignments, but gifts. Volumes he thought she'd enjoy, with handwritten notes in the margins sharing his thoughts. Elena responded by preparing afternoon tea exactly as he liked it. Appearing in his study at the precise moment his concentration flagged. "You're mothering me," he said one snowy afternoon, accepting the cup gratefully. "You're educating me," she countered, gesturing to the rare edition of Vasari's Lives he'd left for her. Fair trade. Their fingers brushed as she handed him the tea. Neither pulled away. Victoria Chen, Marcus's therapist, noticed the change immediately during their monthly video session. "You look lighter," she observed. "What's changed?" "I learned the truth about Sophia's death, and I met someone." The admission felt momentous. "It's complicated." "Most worthwhile things are," Victoria said gently. "Marcus, you've punished yourself for 7 years over something that wasn't your fault. Sophia made her choice from love. Perhaps it's time you did the same." That evening, Marcus found Elena in the conservatory, sketching the frost patterns on glass. She'd taken to spending evenings there, finding peace among the plants Sophia had never seen. "May I?" He gestured to the bench beside her. She shifted to make room, their shoulders almost touching. "I've been thinking about leaving," she said quietly. "The cataloging is nearly done. Staying longer. It's not fair to you." "Not fair to me or not fair to you?" Elena's pencil stilled. "Both. Neither. I don't know anymore." She turned to face him fully. "I dream about her sometimes. My sister. She's painting. She was terrible at it, you know. Couldn't draw a straight line. But in the dream, she's creating masterpieces. And she looks at me and says, 'Finally, you stopped running.' What do you think she means? That I've spent 7 years running from grief, from identity, from the possibility of happiness because I didn't think I deserved it." Elena's voice broke slightly. "The survivor's guilt. It's like carrying stones in your chest. Every moment of joy feels like betrayal." Marcus took her hand, feeling the ridge of the old scar against his palm. "I know. I've carried the same stones. But lately, I've been wondering if the real betrayal is wasting the life she died protecting." They sat in silence as snow fell beyond the glass walls, cocooning them in crystalline quiet. Finally, Elena spoke. I need you to know that what I feel isn't about replacing her or recreating what you had. I fell in love with Marcus Whitmore, not with my sister's memory of him. She squeezed his hand. If that makes any sense. It makes perfect sense. Marcus turned her palm up, tracing the lifeline with his thumb. Because I'm not looking for Sophia in you anymore. I see Elena. Brilliant, resilient, kind. Someone who understands loss but hasn't let it make her bitter. Someone who makes me want to be more than a grieving man in a beautiful prison. Marcus? I'm not saying it will be easy, he continued. We'll both have moments where the guilt crashes back, where we see her shadow between us. But I think she'd want this. Want us to find something good from all that pain. Elena's eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. She would. She'd probably claim she orchestrated it from beyond. She always did believe in fate. Then maybe we should too, Marcus said softly. Start small. Dinner tomorrow. Not as employer and employee, but as two people learning each other. Walk in the snow. Talk about things that have nothing to do with catalogs or the past. See what grows. Like cultivating a new painting, Elena murmured. Layer by careful layer. Exactly. She leaned into him slightly, testing the feeling of his shoulder against hers. It felt both foreign and right, like a language she was just beginning to learn. Over the following weeks, they did exactly as promised. Small steps, careful layers. Dinners became longer, conversations deeper. Marcus taught Elena to ice skate on the estate's frozen pond, laughing when they both ended up in a tangle of limbs on the ice. Elena introduced him to terrible Italian films, providing running commentary that had him laughing until his sides ached. James, ever discreet, began setting the breakfast table for two without being asked. The staff, who'd watched Marcus exist rather than live for 7 years, moved through the house with lighter steps. On New Year's Eve, they stood together on the terrace, watching fireworks bloom over distant hills. Elena wore a deep blue dress that was nothing like anything Sophia would have chosen, her hair swept up to reveal the elegant line of her neck. I love you, Marcus said simply, the words falling like snow between them. Not as an echo or a replacement, but as you. Elena, the woman who brought light back into this house. She turned in his arms, touching his face with wondering fingers. I love you too, terrifyingly, completely, with all my complicated pieces. Their first kiss tasted of champagne and new beginnings, of sorrow transformed but not forgotten. In the distance, the new year swept in on winter wind, carrying away the last of what had been and making room for what could be. Later, as they walked through the house hand in hand, Elena paused before a bare wall in the morning room. We should hang something here, something new, not from the collection, something we choose together. Marcus understood the symbolism, the declaration, of a future they would create rather than curate. There's an auction in Venice next month. We could go together, face the city with its memories and make new ones. I'd like that, Elena said. Though I should warn you, I'm a terrible travel companion. I photograph everything and drag you to tiny cafes and get lost constantly. Perfect, Marcus said, meaning it. I've had enough of knowing exactly where I'm going. They climbed the stairs together, leaving the ghosts in the conservatory with the frost patterns and fading echoes. Somewhere, perhaps, Sophia watched and smiled. The sister and lover who'd brought them together through sacrifice, whose love had been the prologue to their unexpected story. In the morning, they would begin properly. Marcus would give Elena the Botticelli angel locket, now holding photos of both sisters. Elena would tell him about her real childhood, the years before fear. They would stumble, doubt, sometimes ache with the complexity of their beginning. But tonight they simply held each other in the doorway between past and future, painting their new canvas with colors born from sorrow and tempered by hope. It was not the life either had planned, but it was theirs, unexpected, imperfect, and absolutely worth the wait. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the estate in white like a fresh page, ready for whatever story they would write together.